Now we're at the solar. Now we're at the gas station. As I said, they're not here tonight. Ted, would you like to fill in the blanks?
Sure, sure. So, Global Partners is working on, the applicant is working on responding to comments that they heard at last month's planning board public hearing. The public hearing is going to be continued after tonight. We are going to continue to listen. When I say we, the planning board, I'm the planning board's attorney, Ryan is the planning board's engineer. We're continuing to collect information from you, and we will be accumulating information from you or your questions, and they will be passed on to the applicant, and the applicant will be responding to what your concerns are. So that's what they're doing tonight. We will have a public hearing. This is the continuation of a public hearing. Notices have properly gone out. That did not happen last time, but the notices have gone out. I have copies of them. So we're good as far as notices. We'll take comments tonight. We'll continue the public hearing into March, and we anticipate that we'll have supplemental material from the applicant in advance of the March meeting. So what would April? I'm sorry. The best thing you could do, and we're going to be listening tonight. We would rather have comments be to the point. We would rather have comments not. The same. We have the same comments over and over. But what you can do that is probably more valuable, certainly more valuable than making public comments, is you can put your comments in writing. Put your comments in writing. We've started to receive a bunch of comments. We received comments as recently as an hour ago. So we're not responding. The applicant has not gotten a chance to respond to any of those comments. It's not our job to respond to them. We're going to be giving those comments to the applicant. If you can, give me your, if you want to make written comments, give me your written comments, or give the written comments to the planning board as soon as you can, because we want them to be, we can provide them to the applicant when we get them. If we get comments, the day before the public hearing, obviously the applicant is not going to be able to respond to those comments. So I don't want to give a deadline, because the law doesn't provide for a deadline, but I would think that the next public hearing is 4 weeks from tonight. Certainly, if we got the comments 2 weeks in advance of the next public hearing, which would be 2 weeks from tonight, then we could pass those comments on to the applicant. So, let's see. The other item of information, out of, I think, caution, Phil Schmidt is the chairman of the planning board. He's going to be recusing himself because of a relationship with the Alvarez family, out of caution. And so as we move forward, following tonight's public hearing, we're going to, starting next month, Phil isn't going to vote on any of this, and he's also not going to chair. He'll chair the meeting tonight, but another planning board member will chair the meeting in the future.
Correct.
So I think those are my comments.
Okay. So when we open this public hearing, I would like maybe Livingston residents to have the first go at it, the first half of the evening, let's say. And with that said, we can open at 7:15. So anybody from Livingston has questions, comments? I know Al wanted to go first, and he's definitely from Livingston.
All right.
Al, we can't hear you. Could you come up front?
And when people speak, please speak up.
Please.
Is this okay? Everybody can hear me all right?
Yep.
First of all, I'd like to thank the members of the planning committee for serving. It's, I know in many respects, a thankless job. I've tried to do my share in helping the community, serving on Columbia Memorial Hospital Board for a couple of decades. I've been around this area a long time, 1938 to be exact, when my family bought the old Proper farm on Bells Pond Road. Back then there were no zoning laws. Today we are fortunate in having an excellent master plan and an excellent zoning code. The master plan places value on natural beauty, agriculture, etc. Our property, the Hill, which is owned by the Cotswold LLC, was bought in 1994. It was called by Andrew Jackson Downing, the famous landscape architect of the 19th century, in his book dated 1850, "The Hill is the finest example in America of the beautiful style of landscape design." I'm not opposed to commercial development. I did not oppose the Hannaford process because I thought that was done in a responsible way. And it complies with all the town laws. I don't think the proposed gas station of Global Partners meets these required standards. To mention a couple, not to exclude everything, safety of water supply. And I have with us tonight a hydrologist, an expert, Dan Rubin, who will address that issue and give you his reasons. Safety from traffic, that's still to be determined by a traffic study. But that's a dangerous corner, the intersection of 9H, 23 and 82. We had an accident there the other day. Our lessee, Rockridge Stud, has serious concerns about the negative impact on his business from a gas station, possibly a truck stop, immediately across from our main entrance to the horse farm. Larry Visagi will talk tonight, has written a letter to the board outlining his concerns. A 24-hour, 16-pump gas station, 5 diesel pumps, and parking for trucks directly across from our entrance is a severe deterrent to business and has a detrimental effect on Laray's business and the value of our property. The master plan states that no new business can hurt an existing business. We have with us tonight Stephen Clark, an expert appraiser, whose status is here and stated in writing. That we'll ask him to say a few words. And he states that the proposed gas station will have a detrimental effect on our long-standing horse operation and thus be destructive to the value of our property. The town codes, everybody knows, I'm sure, but I'll just hit a section. Section 12C reads as follows. Operations in connection with any special use will not be offensive, potentially dangerous, destructive of property values and basic environmental characteristics, or detrimental to the total interest of the town, and will not be more objectionable to nearby properties by reason of noise, fumes, vibration, electromagnetic, radiation, flashing of lights, and similar nuisance conditions that would be the operations of any permitted use, not requiring a special permit. In other words, a special permit has a threshold that it can't be more objectionable than what is outlined as permissive uses, such as a residence, a farm stand, things like that. Now, Larray Visagia has been our lessee for Rockridge Stud, which he owns, and has serious concerns. There will be a letter in the packet we give to the planning board from him, and he maintains that it will have a negative impact on his business from a gas station / truck stop immediately across from our entrance. The current site plan shows 2 egress and entrances on either side that flank ours on either side, right at the beginning of the curve into the intersection. Certainly 24 hours operation, 16 gas pumps, 5 diesel pumps, and truck parking directly across from our entrance is a severe detriment. The master plan states that no business can hurt an existing business. In addition to Larray, who talked tonight, we have with us Stephen Clark, an expert appraiser, whose data will state in writing and will address the issue that the proposed gas station will have a detrimental effect on our long-time horse operation and shall thus be destructive in its effect on the value of our property. I maintain that this application and applicant do not meet those standards. In addition, we have with us tonight an expert hydrologist, and Dan will speak also, so that you have a chance to hear from an expert person. Could I ask Larray to speak to that letter that he's written?
Hi, I'm Larray. I own Rockridge Stud, so I'll just go. Al actually pointed on a few points that I'm going to make anyway. So I've been in Livingston over 21 years in thoroughbred horses. And that's my living, that's what I do. It's like any other business. It's very competitive. You need to be in it to understand how it works. For me, I'm right across from where it's proposed to be, and flanking my entrances, I breed a lot of horses. I breed 200 mares in a season. A season is 6 months long. I house about 60 horses year-round. For me, my scheduling 6 months out of the year is morning, noon, and afternoon. It's scheduled. People come in, they breed, they leave, and that's what I do. With that happening, to me, it's the gate is open now for traffic for people to come in, but it's an electronic gate. When I close that gate, and I have tractor trailers come in weekly, as far as feed, hay, grain, feeding those amount of horses is a lot. So when this all happens, it will put strain on my business. The problem with it is my clientele expect a high level of competency, facility, because it's competitive. I'm not dealing with backyard horses. I'm dealing with thoroughbreds. At the moment, I stand a Breeders' Cup horse. I stand horses for the best trainers in New York, technically in the country. So those people expect a high level of what we deliver. So if there's issues with how we represent the farm, how it's happening, that will be an effect that will just trickle down and wouldn't work. And no business would be able to function on that. Couple things. With that said, people like to see horses, so they pretty much welcome themselves in. By having a stop, people will very much walk up. This is private property, it's private animals, it is other people's horses that we deal with. So on a regular basis, there's people come up just when we're not busy, but that will just lend a hand for more people to show up. Like I said, during the peak season, which is now in the winter time, that puts a lot of strain on the area. You know, horse trailers don't just zoom in and out. When I have a tractor trailer coming in with 6 horses, they have to slowly get in and out. It's not a matter of just driving and waiting for traffic. That will become an issue for us as well. You know, horses in the summertime sleeps outside, young horses. When you have any cars honking or stuff, they are right next to that proposed entrance, which would be also self-explanatory. When the horses jump, they're flight and fight animals. Something spooks them, they run. It's basic. On top of that, I have photographers that we use these, the facility and the horses that we advertise in various publications. You know, Barbara Livingston is a Eclipse Award-winning photographer that comes on a regular basis and shoots these horses. And we have pictures that will be in there from what we use. And the Catskill Mountains and all of that is all part of what we do for clientele. So that said, you can see how that plays an effect if there's a gas station in front and we're trying to shoot a picture. I'm sure that would not go over with anybody. So like I said, slower traffic for any horse trailers going in and out. That's my biggest concerns, and when all those things factor in, it will affect, you know, my bottom line at the end of it. And
I would think the fumes could affect the horses too, especially young animals.
All that, you know, there's...
It's like humans, not
and the noise.
Noise actually will be as well, like I said, if there's honking and stuff with horses, that all plays in. And
but they leave their trucks running.
Right.
Idling.
Yeah.
So, that's good for me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then, can we hear from Steve Clark, who is the licensed appraiser, who feels that this will be destructive of property value. Thank you, Steve.
Hello, Board. Thank you for having me, attendees. My name is Steve Clark. I'm a real estate appraiser with Empire State Appraisal Consultants. We're located in Kinderhook, next to the library. I was contacted by Mr. Scott to look at the effects of a proposal, commercial proposal, across from the farm on Route 9H, and to look at would there be effects, negative or otherwise, to the property. I just have 2 pictures that I blew up here, and I can leave these here. This is the western side of the property. The property is a 288 acre property with 150 acres of fenced pasture. Right here is the thoroughbred horse operation, horse barn, another horse barn, and there are also 2 farm dwellings. The proposed site for the global partners is here. These are tax map lines. It's not the exact site. I have reviewed the plans at the town hall here of the proposal. It is on a, I believe they are merging 3 tax map numbers here. This is the high spot, the rise, the crown of the road pretty much. No, not pretty much. The crown of the road across from the horse farm. I gave a letter to Mr. Scott describing the operation of the farm and the proposal as was presented to the town. I have observations in that. I talk about, this is a horse farm, a thoroughbred horse farm. I have experience with appraising farms and having family members that are in the horse, that were in the horse business. And I also have one more picture. This is the pasture along 9H taken last week to the west. You can see the view shed. This is the location of the proposed development. On either side, there's going to be entrances of this road. I inspected the property, walked a lot of the property, talked to Mr. Visage regarding his operation, and in conclusion, in my letter to Mr. Scott, I feel that this proposal as it exists would have a detrimental effect to the value of his real property. And I can leave these here if the board would like to see them. And the letter Mr. Scott has that...
That'll be included in the packet that the board members will get.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that is, I wanted to give a brief synopsis here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have a hydrogeologist here tonight who is an expert in all hydro-related matters, Paul Rubin. Paul, if you'd be kind enough to give your presentation. You'll steal my spot.
Right. Yes, I'm a hydrogeologist. I live just up the road in Tivoli, and the Scotts had asked me to take a look at the physical setting and hydrology and geology of the proposed project area. I don't have large diagrams, but I do have some. And I've submitted tonight a very detailed report discussing the hydrogeology and geology situation. So tonight I'm just going to touch on some of the highlights of it and sort of look at this diagram with you as well. First, it turns out when you look at any site, this little red area here is the project site. It's important when you do land use assessments and geologic and hydrologic assessments that you don't operate in isolation. You need to look at the site itself and then, using under the concept of SECRA, what is surrounding it, what's nearby, what might be adversely impacted. So with that thought in mind, I took a look at the geology. It turns out that this area has been mapped for a long time by different glacial geologists, and they've learned a very interesting thing. This large yellow area here is what's called a glacial outwash plain. And that's where at the front end of a glacier, all this meltwater comes out, and you can imagine surging water coming out of a glacier. All the very fine clay and silt-sized particles, they all wash away for the most part. And what's left closest to the front margin of the glacier are sand and pebble cobbles. And this is the material that washed out into this yellow area. It turns out that sand and gravel aquifers comprise some of the very best aquifers anywhere. It's because they're, you can imagine this, picture a jar of marbles and some water in it. All those pore spaces between the marbles in the sand and gravel aquifer are interconnected, and they can carry a lot of water. They have large storativity hydrologically. So this site turns out to be in the headwaters regions of a glacial aquifer. Glacial aquifers are prized by communities. I've worked with different communities to help develop land use considerations. And one of the most important things communities do with these sand and gravel aquifers is they protect them. They make sure they don't put something with a high chemical load, like a gas station, on top of that, so that they can protect the water quality. So it's water quality and water quantity that we're concerned with here. So not only is there a lot of water available in this aquifer that's largely untapped, but I've taken a look at what would the flow rates be from this aquifer out to the nearest surrounding wetlands, which I'll talk about in a minute. It turns out that the applicant has done almost none of the typical hydrogeologic investigation that you would expect. Their town attorney, for the two applications before us, went through a very long laundry list of what should be considered under the SECRA standards for projects. This project has done almost nothing. There's not even a test well on the site. So let's take a look at what we can know about the geology and how fast groundwater flows. And that's important because the hydrocarbons, you can picture a parking lot by a gas station, by the pumps, there's a certain amount of oil runs off, and a certain amount of gasoline runs off. And yes, the applicant does intend to collect it to some degree and pre-treat it to some degree, but using things like oil water separators. But if you know anything about the chemistry of hydrocarbons, you know that they're very soluble and miscible in water. That means that whatever treatment system is used, it will not capture all the contaminants. The same is true of septic contamination. If you have a lot of people using your service station and your restaurant, your leach field goes into the ground, you care whether or not the contaminants might be filtered out and what the down gradient receptors to that contamination might be. So first, how fast does it move? Turns out, hydrogeologically, you can use textbook values and look at average rates of groundwater flow. And I go into some detail in my letter to the board about this. But it turns out, using average numbers in a high-yield glacial aquifer like this one here, we can expect groundwater flow rates on the order of 2 to about 16 feet per day. So what are the nearest receptors? The nearest receptors, in figure 2 here in my report, are a whole series of site areas right here. And if you see what's down gradient of it, it's a ring of very large wetlands and a series of creeks that go all the way down to the Hudson. So here we have a site pretty much near the headwater region of a watershed, highly permeable soil. We're going to put on it potentially a gas station with lots of septic and hydrocarbon contamination, all of which cannot be treated. And it's going to move outward into these wetlands. It's going to move down gradient in the groundwater flow system to wells. So it has the potential to adversely impact a lot of things beyond it. And because there's almost nothing hydrologically above this circle of wetlands, there's very little dilution, and the contaminants moving at 2 to 16 feet per year on average to wetlands that are less than 300 feet or so away, it's going to be rapid. So this is just, it's a great site. What's it great for? Not for a project that has a high chemical load. What it's great for is the future of the town of Livingston as a water supply. This is ideal. Towns treasure resources like this. They want to protect them. So my suggestion is, and I make it in my comment letter, that you deny the special use permit because it's a high chemical load on an extremely vulnerable aquifer that goes directly to wetlands and groundwater systems that should be protected. And in the absence of that denial, I would propose that all those items that your attorney read earlier tonight for these other projects be looked at in great detail. This short form that the applicant has used is just nothing in it. So if we want to look at the adverse environmental impacts, we need to do it thoroughly. Thank you.
Anybody else from Livingston want to speak? Or you from Livingston? Then please. You're on. Name please.
Jessica Mayowith. I have a question because I'm a little confused. Comments were made about truck parking. I have the picture here, and before I make my statement, I want to confirm, or what, is there going to be overnight semi-truck parking in this?
I can tell you, I'm the one that asked for the parking in the back. And the reason I asked for it is, a lot of people with landscape trailers, with lawnmowers, they're gonna
Yeah.
use that to park, that's why.
So I'm just
So, just so you know.
looking at that.
Yeah. I mean, our intention is not to let
I
24-hour
was,
parking.
yeah, I was looking for truck parking and I don't see any,
It's
so
not there,
that's
it's
why.
not. It simply, a pickup truck with a trailer and a lawnmower, the vehicle I drive is 18 feet long.
Would
It's not
be
gonna
able
fit
to
the front.
park somewhere in
In the
that.
back,
But
safely.
there are not designated semi-truck spots in the
No,
plant.
Not at all.
So, I do live in Livingston. In here on my left. I'm also the wife of a truck driver. And just to clarify, New York State has idle laws. Trucks cannot idle for more than 15 minutes. They get ticketed. There's also been laws passed that have changed the whole system in trucks. They have to have something called DEF, which minimizes, supposedly, and I say supposedly from the truck driver standpoint, the emissions. So the trucks that you're thinking of that are loud and noisy and running all night and blowing black smoke are not the trucks that are actually hauling on these roads, which are already truck routes. My concern, when somebody said there was going to be truck parking, I was actually kind of happy, because what's happening now, if anybody uses Bell's Pond, Extra Mart, you see trucks on the shoulder.
Yep.
That is dangerous. It's dangerous for cars, it's dangerous for anybody walking, and it's extremely dangerous for truck drivers. If there's a place where a truck can pull in on their regular route is kind of my point, they're already driving this road. All this is doing, whether it's this spot, and I am very interested about the water thing. I would love to see a more thorough investigation of that, because I don't want anything that's going to damage our water supply as well. But these trucks already go on these roads. Now they're going to get to pull in somewhere instead of sitting on the side of the road and not possibly cause accidents, the death of truck drivers, because they do drive at night. And so at night they're walking across to get into Bell's Pond, which, if anybody's used it, is a nightmare as it is, getting in and out for cars. So something that's safer for all the vehicles that are already using the roads. This is kind of why I'm confused about the thought about additional emissions. And it's a truck route. Is there going to be increased traffic on the road simply because the Extra Mart is moved from one side of the road to the other? I just don't understand. It's not a destination. This isn't a pilot like they have in Skodak with 20-some truck parking. And incidentally, there is a huge deficit of truck parking safely. So for those of us whose husbands are on the road overnight, we're a little concerned about that. But if it's just fuel, we're talking 5 pumps, diesel, truck can stop, pull in, like they do up at Valley Energy, only a few more, and safely pull out and stop and get food safely. To me, I would rather see a truck pull into a place than have to go around it while people are trying to get into Extra Mart because they're parked at the side of the road right by the golf cart place, because that's where they all stop.
In my driveway.
Right, they would have a place to park. So that's what I'm kind of confused about, the idea of increased traffic and increased emissions, because it's already there, all day long. That's kind of the thing. So I'm like going over my little notes. The idea that like it impacts another business, I can appreciate, and I am curious about the water. I want to know if the current Extra Mart is sitting on that aquifer as well. Is the current Extra Mart impacting it? And if so, are we not actually making a choice between older fuel tanks and an older gas station and a newer, updated, safer gas station on the same aquifer. Now, if that's not the case, if it truly is that the new spot is, then I would want to know more about that. I don't want anything that's going to not just impact the water supply negatively, but also stop us from being able to use it in a better way later. But I guess I kind of need to know more. I hope that Global gives a little bit more information about the design. But as it stands, I know how big a truck is, and there ain't no truck sleeping overnight in this parking lot. I'm telling you now, there's no way that they're gonna sneak in there and stay. But they have to run generators. They cannot idle. They're not making any more noise than, I don't know, somebody's heating unit that you can hear. And that's kind of it. I just think that we need a little bit more specific design and to know more about that environmental impact. But again, I asked the town to consider the fact that if this looks like it can go forward, to consider that we're choosing between an old system and a new system. We're not introducing a new type of business to that area. They're going to close down one that is more at risk for leaks and all of this negative environmental impact, and then open up a newer, safer parking lot situation.
It says 18 fueling positions. That's a lot more than what's there now.
Yeah, and right now it's a mess there because they're waiting.
So that says to me a much bigger underground fuel tank system.
And the small one over in Claverick was, the tiny little one in Claverick, where the subway is, was so detrimental to the environment that they couldn't use the water for a small tank. So it's not, so besides, and I understand that if it's bigger, is there more of a risk? So then those are the questions. Instead of assuming that it's going to be a negative environmental impact, why don't we look at what's already there, and is that negatively impacting the environment, and is this better?
Or should we get rid of them both?
But the cars, we need a stop. We need a place for people they're using it, and it's a mess there already. It's dangerous. So that's kind of my.
We had time.
May I respond to that?
No, we're not responding, we're just gathering information, but Jonathan, you wanted to say something? Sure. Jonathan,
I will submit this letter that I'm about to read, but I'd like to read it because I want people to hear it.
Can you speak up?
Sure. I'm a Livingston resident of merely 8 years compared to other people who are speaking here. Dear Chairman Schmidt and Planning Board members, my name is Jonathan Gould, and I've lived in the town of Livingston for the past 8 years, first as a tenant and more recently as a homeowner. Prior to that, I lived across the river in Woodstock, where I served as chairman of the Woodstock Planning Board for 6 years between 1988 and 1994. Having participated in many public hearings like this one from both sides of the table, I want to start by thanking all of you on the board for the time and care and effort that you contribute to the community. With that in mind, I'm also going to do my best not to bore you. I have several areas of concern about the review of Global Partners' special use permit application. First, regarding the process itself. Your office has advised me that the board is addressing this special use permit application as a separate matter from the site plan review of proposed development. While I understand the applicant's desire to obtain a generic approval of this special use before committing time and money to refining the details of their site plan, I question whether separating the SUP review from the site plan review, SUP is special use permit, is the best way for the planning board to proceed. For one thing, there is enormous overlap between these two reviews. The attributes that mandate a special use designation for a gas station, including the need to accommodate a much higher volume of traffic than typical commercial use, and the need to store and manage large quantities of highly flammable fuel, require that the planning board address all the issues of size, scale, vehicular access, intensity of use, and the environmental impact at the special use permit stage of this review. That will leave only the architectural character of the building, canopies, signage, and landscaping to be dealt with in the site plan review. Why not address those issues with the applicant now as part of a combined special use permit and site plan review, especially since the zoning law explicitly requires the board to consider, quote, the location, nature, and height of all buildings, walls, and fences, and the nature and extent of the landscaping on the site in its review of a special use permit application. So that's procedural. Turning to the special use permit itself, it seems clear that there is a broad set of environmental concerns that need to be addressed before a permit can be granted. Given the proximity of ponds, state-protected wetlands, and underground aquifers, the short-term seeker EAF, environmental assessment form, is woefully inadequate. At the board's direction, the applicant needs to submit a scrupulously accurate, full environmental assessment form, and the board needs to consider seriously whether a positive declaration of environmental impact may be warranted in this case. In this regard, the board should not be swayed by the argument, which to some extent we just heard, that a newly built gas station, cafe, convenience store will necessarily be an environmental improvement on the old gas station, cafe, convenience store owned by this same applicant. Mere improvement is not a sufficient basis for approval. If the applicant is indeed able to satisfy the environmental concerns, I believe that there is a clear set of conditions that should run with a special use permit. Given the concern that the addition of multiple diesel pumps will attract greater truck traffic to the new gas station, the special permit should require that New York State DEC idling regulations for trucks, which I thought were 5 minutes, maybe they're 15 minutes, but whatever they are, should be strictly enforced. That should be a condition of the special use permit. And that no overnight parking of trucks or cars be permitted on the site. In addition, it goes without saying that the hours of operation for the cafe need to be stipulated in the special use permit. Turning next to the site plan issues, my chief concerns are the architectural scale and design of the building, canopies and signage, the landscaping of the parking areas, and the screening of neighboring properties. The zoning law explicitly states that, quote, special emphasis shall be given in site plan review to aesthetic considerations. The proposed 4,800 square foot building is a very large commercial structure. It's essential that the board use its authority to require the applicant to construct a building, canopies, and signage whose architectural design minimizes the scale of this development and reflects and enhances the distinctly rural and agricultural character of our town. Livingston deserves something better than another piece of strip mall architecture or a garish imitation barn that is designed to serve as a commercial advertisement for itself. Last but not least, an important dimension of this review involves the fact that the applicant, Global Partners, owns the site of the existing gas station, cafe, convenience store directly across Route 9 from the site of the proposed development. The narrative on the application describes this project as, quote, a redevelopment of Global Partners' current commercial use. I believe that the board should make the reclamation of this existing site a condition of the special use permit. This should include the removal of underground tanks and the testing of the surrounding soil, the demolition of the existing building, canopy, and signage, the provision of new landscaping and screening, and any other reasonable steps that will prevent the property from turning into an abandoned eyesore. Essentially, the board is dealing with a commercial applicant who wants to expand and relocate an existing business in the town. The disposition of the current site of that existing business should be addressed as part of the special use permit application. Again, I want to thank you all for your time and your attention.
Thank you.
Anybody else from Livingston? Livingston? Yes.
Hello, my name's Mary Evans, and I don't know a lot of the initials of all the permits, so excuse me if I make mistakes, but my question is, this is a new development. Having parking for trucks, how do you enforce how long they can stay? You know, when you build it, they come. And, you know, my concern is very great. Why would anyone in Livingston, and we're not you people, we're all neighbors, why would we do a short form environmental impact statement? What's the hurry? They already own a place. They're already earning money. They are not someone who's trying to open a new business, and if they can't open it, they imperil their investment and their right to make a living, which is something we all need. They're making money now. Why When they came to the meeting, they didn't know what the signage was going to be. They didn't know almost anything, and yet they were intent on getting this form filled out, which really we're supposed to do it with no information. I say again, what's the hurry? We need a detailed, all the experts speaking, this is a crucial place, we need to know the details. I'm not the first to say that water is the oil of the 21st century. Let's not be foolish and squander something that cannot be fixed. Let's make sure that it will work for people who live in Livingston when we're all gone. That's part of it, you know. It's not you people, it's all of us. And that's important. To sign a short form is lunacy. And I admire the planning board who volunteer to protect us. Please protect us. They're making money. There's no reason to rush something when so many things could be at peril. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm the orphan in the room. I don't live in Livingston. My name is Ann McPherson, but I do live between Claverick and Livingston on a little tiny strip of land that includes our house at the foot of the Taconic Creek Bridge and Bryant Farms. I have, in the 20 years that I've lived at 5564 Route 9H and 23, I have noticed an enormous increase in truck traffic. So my concerns are as follows. What are the benefits to the town of Livingston, economic benefits of this project? That's my first question to you all. Do you have an answer or an idea?
Keep asking.
Okay. What studies have been done or conducted by the project developers on the feasibility, sustainability, and proof that there is going to be enough business to keep this place running? Or will we face a business going out of business because they overreached and an eyesore and pollution? My next question is, how many new jobs will this new truck stop give us? I think that's very important. I want to know what the benefits are of this. And I also want to know about what the negative impact is, not only on the town of Livingston, but the county of Columbia. On Sunday night, I witnessed a horrific accident at the corner of 23, 9H, 82, and 9, where one truck T-boned another. I saw first responders from Greenport, from Livingston, from Red Hook. There were a lot of first responders. How much did that cost the county and the town? If there were to be a major accident because of additional trucks going too fast, going through red lights, going around curves, and trucks have been clocked in front of my house at 70 and 80 miles an hour. So when we get our first massive truck accident, God forbid it's a propane truck and a cattle truck. Let's do a terrible scene here from a movie. My question is, how much is that going to cost the county? To put the fire out, to clean up the wreckage? All of this I think we need to know. And what I'm hearing here is that this company hasn't even hired a hydrologist, geologist. Why not? I agree, water is our oil in the 21st century. The climate is changing, we're going to get drier and hotter, so that needs to be considered. Quality of life of the residents. And it's not just you guys in Livingston, it's me and Scott DeLaurentis. We are affected night and day by trucks down-braking, downshifting, doing 70 and 80 miles an hour, blowing their horns at 3 o'clock in the morning, blocking my driveway so they can get into Bell's Pond. I'm concerned and I want answers. Thank you very much, and thank you for the good job that you do.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Hi, Jessie Schofield. Schofield family's been a resident, Columbia County since 15, I think we were in the 1915 survey in Churchtown, also Millerton, etc. I am the wife, daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, sister, niece, I'm missing one, of truck drivers. I have a lot of truck drivers in my family. I'm a little disappointed at how much everyone looks down their nose at this in a blue-collar community. I understand the concerns, but
Nobody's looking down their noses.
absolutely. We get it all the time. Trucks are, I've heard it in here the last meeting, that trucks are dirty, trucks run constantly, they run all night. It's actually a 5-minute law for truck idling. I would be happy to speak with any of you to take you through a truck, to show you a trucking operation, so that you can better understand what we face every day. We don't have parking. We have laws that are imposed upon us that are imposed upon no other working class.
That's not true.
Let her finish. More people are killed by physicians during medical malpractice related to fatigue than are killed by truck drivers on the road. Actually, by all auto accidents in general. You have a greater chance of going to your doctor and having him screw up your prescription at the ER because he's tired than you do getting into an accident with a truck. We need parking too. And it's just to get a sandwich. And everybody's going to lose their minds because there's a truck there. The trucks travel that roadway already because commerce is a thing and it's in this area. And a lot of people are truck drivers in this area as well. We live here. We work here. We operate here. Our tax dollars are here just like yours. Give us a chance. If you have a question, I am happy to answer them about trucks. Yes, ma'am.
Why do the trucks on 9H do 70 and 80 miles an hour at 3 o'clock in the
Have
morning?
you ever worked with a person who is less than good at their job?
I know a lot of truckers.
Right.
Okay? And I don't see a reason why they have to drive 70 or 80 miles an hour.
The majority of them don't, or you'd
Yeah, they do.
have the
Can I
DOT
ask you a
officers
question?
sit.
You have proof of trucks going 80 miles an hour?
Yes, thank you.
You have proof. You
I
have
do
a
have
radar
proof.
gun and you can tell me that truck's
No,
going 80
but I
miles
can
an hour?
have the sheriff's department do it.
I'd love to see it.
In fact, I
Just so we
have
can
been
know.
talking with D.E. Barrett's office to get a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit.
We should
between Clavering and
focus on the
Belleville.
application
Yeah.
and let speakers finish speaking and don't interrupt, please.
As a lifelong resident of this county, as a blue-collar person, as a person who utilizes the Bells Pond gas station every single day, it's an eyesore. It's hard to get in and out of at 7 o'clock in the morning when you're late for work or you're trying to get your kid to the bus. And it's tight and cramped. I've had a problem finding a parking spot there, I don't know how many mornings. Everybody, I imagine that there's a lot of parents in this room, or people who have been parents in their life, that you're late, you're trying to get the kids to school, you forgot to get snack and you're running to the gas station. There's no parking. I mean, we're talking about a move of 125 feet. We're talking about getting newer, upgraded. I agree that there needs to be more environmental stuff done as well. However, there's a lot of, hurtful rhetoric when it comes to the trucks. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. As a truck driver's wife, mother, sister, cousin, nephew, I have all of that. If you want to know, I'll tell you. She was right about, it's 5 minutes, not 15 minutes now. That law changed November or something of last year. And DEF fluid is called diesel exhaust fluid. It's injected into the exhaust of the truck to reburn it and to help pull down the particulate matter. It's required on all new trucks after 16, I believe, which is an increasing number of trucks on the road. There's a lot of grant programs that help to replace trucks that are older, etc. I'm not saying please stop, but I'm saying please be a little more understanding as a community because you've got fathers of truck drivers, wives and mothers, and they're parking on the road to get a sandwich and crossing. The horrific accident could happen at the hands of a crappy truck driver, but what about the good one that's going to get run over because he can't get a sandwich? He doesn't have a place to park. He's got to stop a couple of times in order to get fuel here, a sandwich here, and go to the bathroom here. That's what we have right now in this community. Pilot is our only thing. Do you realize how far Pilot is away? Have you ever had to run on a clock where you're required to work just a certain number of hours? Give us a chance.
We're gonna do a few more questions tonight, so anybody else have anything new to put in? You've spoken last time, so I'm just looking for anybody that hasn't spoken yet. Have you?
I just have a question, a
Sure.
clarification. If they don't get the permit to build this new gas station, are they still going to close the original one?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
No,
But
no.
I honestly don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I have no
Okay.
clue. I really don't know. Yes, sir? Just name, please, or come on up, okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Gordon. I assume you can hear me. I've got written comments which I'd like to distribute to you. I think we emailed them to you today.
Can you speak into the mic?
It doesn't work. You sent your correspondence at 5:30 this evening.
Correct. So I've got a hard copy for you.
Okay, well, we obviously didn't have time to go over it.
I understand. I've also got comments from an environmental consultant, which I'll distribute as well in hard copy. I believe she sent them to you later yesterday. I understand time is getting short, so we have detailed written comments, so I'll just limit my comments to 3 main points that I want to highlight for the board. First, my name is David Gordon. I'm an environmental attorney and representing Livingston concerned citizens. My first comment relates to SEQR, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And what I want to just inform the board, you may already be aware of it, and certainly your counsel will tell you, that the upcoming decision that you're going to make under SEQR is the declaration of significance. It's the fundamental decision in the SEQR analysis, at least at the outset. And the threshold for making a positive declaration under the law is very low. And the reason why that is because the law requires a positive declaration if there may be at least one environmental impact, significant adverse environmental impact. May be at least one, whether it's impact on groundwater, impact on surface water, impact on air, impact on scenery, etc. In our written comments, we submitted, I think, 2 court cases that held that. We could have chosen from about 40. It's bedrock law. And so if, at the end of your initial analysis, if you have questions about any significant adverse environmental impact, you must do a positive declaration. You'd only do a neg dec if you were certain that there would be no significant adverse environmental impact. Of all the categories that your attorney read to you in the previous couple of applications ago, that whole litany, there's only one you do a positive declaration. And I want to point out, in a follow-up to Mr. Gould's comments, he was concerned that you would do this, the site plan review for the special use permit or vice versa. The answer to that concern is that your SEQR review, including the declaration of significance, should take into account the technical issues that go into both of those permits. And so the answer to not doing site plan or special use permit one before the other is to do, in your SEQR review, to do a comprehensive SEQR review so that you're essentially developing all the information that you will need for both. And the way to do that, again, what the law specifies is the organized standard SEQR review would be an environmental impact statement. That's the way you scope it out and you get at all of the issues. And so in a situation like this, where frankly at this point it's clear that we probably have at least one, the possibility of at least one significant adverse environmental impact, I think we're looking at a positive declaration. My second point, again piggybacking on a prior point, is the question of the remediation of the existing site. There is no question that the handling of the existing site is a part of this application. It does not matter that it's on a separate parcel. Indeed, this particular application covers a couple of parcels, and there's nothing unusual about that. These operations are going together. If the project is approved, the applicant is warranting to you, as the applicant must, that the existing site is going to be decommissioned. If that wasn't happening, you'd be dealing with 2 gas stations. And I think everybody knows and we've heard that that's not on the cards, and that also would be a significant problem. So the remediation for this, the mitigation for this action is the decommissioning of the existing site. They are inextricably linked. The pumps would have to be taken out, and the tanks would have to be taken out. The point I'm getting at is this is now part of your seeker analysis, as it must be, and it must be done thoroughly. And that involves testing the soil and cleaning up the soil. There's no way that the applicant has made some comments that they're trying to separate it out. It's not separable. This must be done as part of the seeker analysis, as part of your mitigation. Which leads me to my third point, which is the question of water. We've heard a lot of comments about the value of the water supplies here, both the aquifer and also the surrounding wetlands. I would advise the board to take a very close look at Paul Rubin's slides, particularly the ones that show the extent of the wetlands surrounding this site. Bell's Pond is a DEC-regulated wetland, and that is obviously very, very close to both the existing gas station, where the remediation would occur, and where the soil has already had contamination issues, and the new site. There's also an area, which Mr. Rubin mentions as a wetland, north of the new site. It's not a DEC-regulated wetland, but it's eligible to be a DEC-regulated wetland because on Mr. Rubin's analysis, the core wetland is more than 16 acres, and it's actually adjacent to another wetland right across the road that's another 2+ acres. Basically, that 19 acres of wetlands up there, and it's eligible for DEC designation. Also, on the DEC Environmental Resource Mapper, the Bell's Pond wetland has what's called a check area, where you're supposed to check to make sure that the wetland boundary is not within 100 feet of the proposed project. And almost the entire project is within the DEC check area. We've got a map of that, a depiction of it on my comments as one of the attachments. So the point is, and both of these wetlands go into streams that go into the Mud Creek and then ultimately into the Claveret Creek and ultimately into the Hudson River in a very, very significant area of the Hudson River. So on both surface water and with respect to the aquifers that Mr. Rubin described, you have a very, very sensitive resource. Again, if there is any question as to the potential for a significant adverse environmental impact from the runoff from the new site, for example, from leakage from the new site, from leakage from the old site due to the contamination or the tanks, you must do an environmental impact statement. And that's what's called for here because you have essentially a whole list of environmental issues and a lot of sensitivity to this, and also there's issues I can't take the time to discuss right now with respect to traffic, that essentially leads you to require a comprehensive environmental review. Thank you.
These are just the letters written statements from Al Scott and Larry, as well as
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Rebecca Gospel. I'm here representing Assemblymember Dee Dee Barrett tonight. She unfortunately couldn't make it because the Assembly is in session. She's in Albany, but she's asked that I read a letter on her behalf. I'll keep it brief. Again, thank you to the Planning Board for their service, and thank you to all of you for being engaged and active. So it reads, Dear Livingston Planning Board, as New York State Assembly member representing the town of Livingston, I write to share my concerns regarding the potential negative environmental and community impacts posed by Global Partners' large proposed retail convenience store and gas station project. I urge you to deny the application for a special use permit and issue a positive declaration requiring a full environmental impact study and site remediation of the current gas station. The environmental threats of this proposed proposed project warrants a thorough environmental review. Bell's Pond is a New York State protected wetland identified by DEC's Riparian Opportunity Assessment as significantly stressed. The proposed project increases the risk of groundwater contamination and runoff into Bell's Pond and the Hudson River tributary, Mud Creek. It may also place environmental burdens on wildlife habitat, ecosystem services, natural stormwater control, and erosion control. A full environmental impact study should be required to understand the effects of the proposed project. Should the project be approved, the lack of a site remediation plan for the current gas station is also troubling. To mitigate the risk of a vacant gas station in Livingston, and the threat it poses to surrounding property values and community morale, I implore the planning board to require an adequate remediation effort and exit plan for the old station. In addition to the environmental threats, the proposed project would alter the character of our rural community. The Bells Pond Diner has long served as an anchor of our community and a gathering place for many local residents, including myself. It happens to be a favorite weekday breakfast place for me, a diner devotee. Before moving forward with Global Partners' proposed retail convenience store and gas station project, I ask you to consider the community loss of this Livingston establishment. I strongly urge you to decline Global Partners' application for a special use permit and issue a positive declaration in favor of a full environmental impact study and site remediation of the current gas station. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Please do not hesitate to reach out to my office with any questions. Sincerely, Dee Dee Barrett. Thank you for your time.
We are going to close the public hearing now, but we still have more business, so if you're going to leave, please leave.
We're going to adjourn the public hearing.
Adjourn the public hearing, sorry. Adjourn at 16.
We have a person here who hasn't spoken yet.
You spoke last time. I know all about the heart attack stuff. For now. Let's move on. Mr. In your